doors to open. Because talk nice to them, and it don't work. Because whatever's going on at home, whatever's in that mental and emotional state, it just don't work. And they end up with several kids. They usually end up in foster care. This is why I like for instance, the Chinese culture, the goddess of the water. She was based on an actual person. And I love it when I read cultures and they do that. Like, because there are people who are really great people who do really great things for society, for that culture, and for the world. And that should be celebrated. You ain't coming upon someone and then they end up pregnant and then they take you. Definitely I have these glass jars that had eggnog in it that I got from Kroger's, and part of that thing, like it's a whole recycling program with that company that makes the eggnog, where they would give you some money back if you bring the jars back. So they recycle them, they wash them out and, you know, disinfect them or whatever, sanitize them and reuse them. So I'm like, all right, I got 2 of those, and it's some really great eggnog too. I don't know who this company is, but just because they have this type of program, which lets me know they give a damn about the environment. The eggnog is great. It's like all organic and stuff like that. And I'm not a big eggnog person. What is this? Homestead Creamery. Right? This is what a jar looks like. And I got 2 different flavors, and it was so good. Oh my gosh. My daughter loved it. So, and like the other one. Homestead Creamery. So I'm going to go take those back. I figured out the eBay thing. Well, I think I figured it out. That when I list the product, I can just mark it as sold, and they'll release the funds. So that way I can use the actual shipment payment that they paid, that the customer paid, to pay for shipment to ship that stuff. Because first go around, it was like, no, your funds won't be released until the item is shipped. So I'm like, fuck, I don't have the money to ship the item. So I need to go ahead and just like release these people's money back and not hold on to that money. But then after I did that, I realized, well, hey, maybe if I would have just clicked the button that said shipped, it could have released the funds, and then I could have used the funds to ship that product. And that would have been good. Like, then I would have had, you know, a little extra cash to reinvest or to get like household shit. I feel like I'm ranting too much and I'm getting too personal and I'm talking too negative. But this is some like real life shit that is like everyday shit for some people, or has been for someone, you know, at some point in their life. So, you know, maybe somebody can relate and they can like at least not feel alone in going through their shit, because there is someone else out there, you know, me, who's going through it too. So like, you're not alone. Unfortunately, and you know, we can figure this shit out and get out of this shit together. Because this is the Becomings. This is not like a show about being perfect and being nice all the time and being like bubbly and happy and like dancing around all the time. Although I like to dance, I like to be happy, and you know, you're gonna see a lot of that. It's just not gonna be every single freaking video, because the whole point of this, right, is to be open, honest, transparent, and is to be like humble, right? And to be honest about your shit, right? And not pretend. There's enough people out there pretending like everything is great because they got to put on a good face for a camera. And you know what that does? It helps some people, but a whole lot of people get caught up in the bullshit. They think, they start comparing themselves, and they think that like their life is nothing, or their journey is like so horrible because they're not, or it seems like, or it feels like they're not on the trajectory that someone else was on, or like they're comparing where they are to where they want to be, and which is their journey to someone else's journey. And that is toxic as fuck. Okay? That is so fucking toxic. Okay? So, like, don't do that. Because I've been hearing that a lot. Like, before I started watching social media and, like, stepping out and trying to do stuff and, like, learning from people who put their videos online. Like, I've been hearing that a lot, so that was one of the things going in. I was like, okay, be warned, there's something I can look out for. Like, a lot of people must do that, so don't do that. So, times where I got frustrated or felt like, well, damn, they got that, and I've been trying this for this long. It looks like they doing the same things. They're saying the same things. Yep, I did that. So why am I hearing that? When those thoughts start to, like, pop up, I'm just like, their journey is their journey, my journey is my journey, and that's why. So I could just, like, wipe that out ahead because I was already pre-programmed for that. Yay, thank you. One less stress, one less issue. Okay, that feels good. That's something positive to think about, right? And for me, I cannot and will not, for my mental health, for other people's mental health and well-being, work in certain places or certain atmospheres. The same as the world, the culture, the community that I'm setting up with Lifted Life is the same, the same reasons. Yeah, because I had lips ashy as a bitch. It's the same issue, the same thing, the same reason why I don't last too long at certain places, right? There's certain mentalities and stuff like that. I just really feel like no one should have to push through being around somebody else. Now, I can see it's one thing if, like, for instance, for me. And I saw this on a narcissist channel, a channel where people talk about narcissistic abuse and stuff like that, and, like, survivors of narcissistic abuse. And I felt like, often when I watch it, I'm like, am I a narcissist? Am I? And I have to go through like a checklist of things. Like, no, I actually give a damn about people. I'm empathetic. I'm really kind and caring and stuff like that. I cannot. It's impossible. I can't be a narcissist. And then I got to go back and reflect. Oh, what did I do? What was those situations? Right, I wasn't even thinking, and I did this, and this is how I truly felt. Like, is it possible? I'm not a fucking narcissist. I go through this roller coaster every freaking time. But anyway, this one thing also got me thinking, am I a fucking narcissist? And it had to do with, like, my uncomfortableness around people who are sad or going through, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to respond. I just don't know how to respond. Someone cries is weird. Is like, I'm affectionate in a way, but I'm not like touchy affectionate. I'm not like hug on you all the time type of affectionate. You know what I'm saying? So it gets weird. For me, it gets weird. And then if it gets weird for me, I'm probably creating weird situations or awkward situations for other people. And I don't want to do that. And then that's weird in itself, right? So I'm like, what do I do? When somebody is sad, when somebody is going through something or like has a problem or issue, my mind automatically goes to how can I solve their problem? How can I fix it? If somebody's complaining about something, my mind automatically goes to, well, what are the trouble spots? Why are the trouble spots? And how can the trouble spots be no more? And my mind automatically goes through these things. And I would often start to give advice when it's not wanted. And even if it sounds good advice, because a person don't want it, they'll argue against it. They're like, no, but you know what? And then that leads me to wonder if those people just want to be upset. But the real thing is, they don't want to be upset, but they want empathy. They want somebody to, like, just empathize with them in that moment. That's what they mean when they say, like, just sit there with a person. Just like, be with that person going through these negative emotions. And I don't know how to do that. I barely know how to do that with myself, to just sit with myself and feel the negative emotions. My mind automatically goes to relief, get rid of these negative emotions. And that is problem solver. Just go to solve the problem. Fix it so you're not in pain anymore. That's where my mind goes. That's how I show care. Because that in itself takes a lot of energy, right? It takes brain power. It takes resources. It takes, like, getting off of the path that you were on, the mental path that you were on, to do what you got to do, or to think through what you got to think through what somebody else is thinking through, or to think through this new situation or something like that, to find a solution. And so that's how I show that I care. Right? But I don't know, but that ain't always what people need. So just like in the other video when I was talking about when I was talking about needs, and I was talking about like doing no harm. That's that. Like, once you know that that's not what the person needs, then you know that it'll just do them further harm to not give them what they need, and instead to give them what you want to give them. Even if it's good advice. Right? Good advice at the wrong time is no longer good. It's bad. Thank you for letting me get that out. Well, that's another thing. Sometimes once you get it out, you just feel a lot better. I feel better now. Feel a little better now because I got it out, and I'm going to turn these in. I'm going to hopefully get this idea on the spot, and this job on the spot. So, like, prayers go out to the universe. This is the feeling that makes me wish that I just stuck it out at some of these places. But then some of these places, you hear the stories from the management, from the employees, about all these people who used to work there who just snapped on motherfuckers. And then you work around them and you realize why. So would I be one of them people to just snap on somebody like that? I don't know. It's quite possible. But I ain't trying to lose my mind in these places. I'm not trying to have to go through therapy just to work with people and collect a fucking paycheck. It's barely enough to get by in this economy any fucking way. Oh, positive note. I am almost finished with the book on goddesses of water. And these are some really interesting stories, right? Interesting stories. Makes me want to delve deeper and really look into the culture of these people, right? These different groups of people throughout history, throughout time, in different parts of the world. And most of them conceptualized like creation, like they connected creation with water. They all connected like birth, life with water, and death with water. Some of them like focused more on death and like tragedies and bad stuff, and like the goddess of their waters who were like punishers. And it always, it always had something to do with like some traumatic experience with their male counterpart or with their father or something like that. Like, it is a trip. It's crazy. And then you have the other deities, the the other people who conceptualized it as like a beautiful, like just a beautiful, loving, caring, nurturing thing. And that is a trip, because you could tell a lot about like where the people lived, what's going on in their environment, what must be affecting their psyche. I mean, like on a large scale, because this isn't like something some like one person just came up with. This is something that whole groups of people, thousands of people actually believed this all together. You know what I'm saying? And it resonated with them. It meant something to them. So it had to like reign true in their environment. So it's like, damn, some people had some rough times on the water. Okay. some people had some pretty rough fucking times in their culture, in their society, dealing with the men in their society and dealing around water, right? Like, they had some really tough times because they deified this whole thing and this whole process and said, this is the story of creation. This is the story of how water animals goes, or the troubles dealing with water, or whatever the particular story was, like, around that thing. And they deified this thing. They're like, this is what we are going to worship, this is what we're going to practice, this is what we're going to teach our kids. Like, this is that important that we must live by this. That's deep. That's deep, and that's crazy. Oh my gosh, that's deep. So then think about it. Go into the Bible, right? And then look at today, and then look at the different Bible believers, the different types of believers, the different denominations, the different religions within the religion. And how they think about it, and how they practice or don't practice, and like just the stories that go along with it. And then think like back in history in different times, and like we know that the different parts of the Bible was written at different times, and was added to at different times, or recreated at different times. And the timeline is not evident based on the order of the books, because it's not in chronological order based on creation dates. It's based on how this particular council saw fit to put it together, right? And the king that commissioned it and approved it. King, priest, how they approved it and how they put it together. And how they saw fit. So it says a lot about their minds, about the Bible creators' minds, and about the Bible followers' minds, right? Depending on what part they preach from the most. Now, all of them, a great deal of them, most of them would say that that you have to believe in the whole book. You have to take the whole book. That is all true. But even though they say that, they don't preach out of the whole book. They stick to their specific ones that align with their own personal beliefs, right? Even stretching their beliefs a little bit to accept other parts of the book. But they still hardly ever take the whole entire book, even though they say they do. And so that's just interesting to think about their minds and think about what they must be experiencing in the past, what they had to have experienced, what was everyday life like for them, to hold these things true. Because it is also, in the Old Testament, a whole lot of things against women, right? I mean, the Bible leads you to believe that rape is okay. or the only punishment for rape is if it's found out you now have to marry the person that you raped. And I don't know what type of punishment that is, except to maybe the person who don't want to take care of the person. They just want to like have their way with their body, but they don't really want to like take care of them on a day-to-day basis. Then I can see how that could be a bit torturous. But I guarantee you it's more torturous for that woman who has to live with you, and now you angry that you got to take care of her, so you starving her and raping her, beating on her and raping her, or whatever. Like, And the Bible is like, yep, God said this is what it is. That's what you got to do. That ain't cool. Not cool at all. Okay? And I know I'm going to get some backlash for this, because there are people who fight for the right to be sexual deviants. And then there are those who fight to protect the sexual deviants. I don't understand these things. But it exists, and it's fucked up. But the Bible also talks about how a girl is a woman when she comes on her period. And now let's say that back in the day, back in the Bible times, a girl did not start her cycle until she was 16. A 16-year-old should not be with a 40-something-year-old. Okay, let's go into the New Testament, because it's not just the Old Testament. Mary, mother of Jesus, was a young teenage girl. Somewhere between 12 and 14. Joseph was an old-ass man. Joseph had a wife already before Mary, who was an older woman who could not have any more kids. Joseph already had kids. And you know what? That statement right there, because I don't know. Let me just Google it real quick. Because I'm saying Joseph had kids. In my mind, Joseph already had kids. Jesus was not the only child. They had children before and after. But let me just Google this, because I don't want to be lying on a video. Did Joseph have children before Jesus? Let's see what Google say. Okay, somebody put on Wikipedia, agreeing with Mary's continued virginity in the context. Okay, Judas, Justus, James, and Simon, and two daughters, Asia and Lydia, by a previous marriage. After the basic background, the text proceeds to paraphrase the Gospel of James, stopping at the point of Jesus' birth. Jesus had older siblings, but Jesus was the firstborn, the only child of Mary. So, Joseph had other kids. Joseph had a wife who was older and couldn't have any more kids. Joseph and his wife were old. This old ass man was going to have sex with this little girl. The issue was not that she was too young for him. The issue was that she popped up pregnant before he got a chance to have sex with her. We can make it sound all nice before they consecrated that marriage and all this. He won't the first to fuck her. Or he was the first to fuck her, but the concern was that he won't the first to fuck her because she popped up pregnant. This little girl. Okay. So now that's dealing with humans, right? It's good that he ain't treated like a whore and cast her aside and all that stuff, you know. That's probably because the Holy Spirit scared the fuck out of him. But let's get into that too, because what is the Holy Spirit, right? The Holy Spirit is part of the God Trinity. So God fucked a little girl. The Holy Spirit came upon her at night. When the Bible say that someone knew someone, or that it came upon someone, that was sexual. You ain't coming upon someone and then they end up pregnant and ain't no sex involved, okay? The Holy Spirit was not some like dark or white fluffy cloud that just floated over top of her and then magically she just boom was impregnated. Okay. Okay, but that's the imagery that they would want to give you so that you can separate it in your mind from pedophilia. It's nothing sexually deviant there. This is God. This is the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit can come on a 12-year-old and get them pregnant if they want to. Look, let me tell you, my sister was pregnant at 12. She had my niece at 13. The nurses in the hospital, they was all horrible to her. And that, sadly, was not like a individual case thing. And their excuse, right? When we ask them about it, well, why are you acting like that? Is to give the little girl the most horrible experience possible so that they would hold off and not continue to get pregnant. Because they saw little girls pregnant over and over again coming into the OBGYN. Coming into giving birth. And that was their way of protecting them. Because they talk nice to them and it don't work. Because whatever's going on at home, whatever's in that mental and emotional state, it just don't work. And they end up with several kids. They usually end up in foster care. Because they are literally babies having babies. This was the 20th century, 21st century. And now let's go back to the Bible. Bible days. Let's go back to the first century. Before the first century. This was an everyday thing. It wasn't an issue. It wasn't something like special or miraculous. The miracle was that they were saying it's the Holy Spirit instead of a physical man. So this is a regular thing. And if she is considered a woman once she has her cycle. Like that whole thing just doesn't even make sense. Because biologically, just because you start your cycle, it means that you are able to conceive. It does not mean that your body is ready for you to conceive. You're not just going boom to boom, like one thing to another thing overnight. It's a whole transition point. It means that your body needs to start releasing eggs and preparing because it is still growing and developing. It's part of the growth and development cycle, and your body is still maturing, which is why it's a higher risk of like birth defects and death for the baby and for the mom when you have a baby too young. This should have never been a thing that was normal. I can halfway understand back in the day, you got a group of people who don't have the scientific knowledge, right? And then the issue who also looks down on women or looks at females as their property. That's their only value, is what the female can do for the male. Then that's the issue. Then it would make sense, that line of thinking, right? That would so make sense. And then you got a mom who went through it. So, what is she going to do? Because this is the way of the world. And, now your husband is ready to kick the daughter out because somebody is willing to pay for her. You got to pay that dowry, and that's going to go towards the family's wealth or whatever. And then you'll have one less mouth to feed. And now she's someone else's problem. And he could just have his way with her, right? Like, that is a fucked up cycle that has led up to now. There's still like residue of that. And part of it has to do with the preachings and the teachings around this doctrine. Like, imagine, okay, the Norse goddess of the sea, right? Ran. She is a giantess nymph. She is a giantess goddess, right? And she captures sailors, right? This is saying that it was something going on. And it's like, why is the woman capturing in her net the men that's crossing the sea? Right? It's not saying men and women, men, women, children. No, it is the menace in the sea. And part of the story, some of the traditions talks about women being thrown overboard or kids being thrown overboard. And this isn't the only culture like that, right? This is the only belief where it's storylines like this in there. It's crazy. It's crazy. And so religion has led people. People created religion to lead and guide other people, to give principles and concepts and like rules to live by, principles to live by, to control a society of people, right? Without having to like stand over top of them and dictate, because if there's some huge unseen powerful force, more powerful than whatever you can imagine here, right, then people are more likely to listen to it, because there's forces behind nature that we can't see or explain or control, and it scares the fuck out of people, right? So we just say that there's a god or a goddess, right? Because if we say, hey, this is me telling you, then a motherfucker look at you like, who the fuck are you? This is why I like for instance, the Chinese culture, the goddess of the water, she was based on an actual person. And I love it when I read cultures and they do that. Like, because there are people who are really great people who do really great things for society, for that culture, and for the world. And that should be celebrated, right? You should say, okay, this is a real flesh and blood, a real human who thought and practiced this way. And it's a great example for how we can treat each other going forward. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is great. So she was an actual medical, like a medical professional. She studied Chinese medicine, and she was better at it than a whole lot of other people. She performed what they call miracles, but she probably just took some herbs and stuff and like cured some people of some things that other people just didn't realize that these herbs can actually cure. And she spent her life talking to people and teaching people how to prevent illnesses, right? Not just curing them after they got sick, but teaching them how to not get sick and how to prevent injuries. So while they're out working or doing what they do, how to protect their bodies, right? So that they won't get injured. That is a beautiful thing. Okay. Yeah. So now it's 8:18. I need to go ahead and take these bottles back. I was ready to say I'm going to just go straight to the place and go for this interview. Get this job. I'm going to go ahead. It's, 11 minutes away. I'm going to go ahead and take these bottles back and then go to the interview and get my day on, and then go back and finish my book and clean up and all that good stuff. Alrighty, so thanks for listening. I know I just talked about a lot. We talked over a lot. different gods and goddesses, this whole name thing. Oh, I got to rant a bit. Hopefully you'll find some value here. This it sucks. That lady was just getting out the car, and it's tight ass parking spots. So when she got out, she had to push her door onto the other door. You can see her trying to like squeeze and not let her door dent their car and stuff like that. But it had to actually touch. I've been in those situations. Yeah, you try to walk with a face like I ain't do nothing wrong. But the whole time you looking around like I hope ain't nobody see that. Let me check the car. Nope, no dent. Everything's good. Yay. Paint intact. I've been in those situations. People who make driveways make spaces a little bigger, okay? Who makes parking lots, make the lines like just a little bit bigger, okay? Let's take into account the fact that people need to open doors too, not just pull in. No, you're trying to fit as many cars into a space as possible. But you know, people who have these buildings, just like commissioning the layout for these, like just leave space for doors to open. And in there's a message. So at some point, I'm probably going to clip that and be like, apply it to something completely different. It ain't got nothing to do with cars. Leave space for doors to open. There you go. All right. Peace. Love. Thank you for this therapy. Here's another video for another day. Ooh.